I'm here with the team who make behind Arc Roasters, and I've got Kate, Dan, and Taylor. Kate, why don't you just give a short introduction to yourself?
Yeah, great. I'm Kate McGee. I work with the Crop to Cup team as their director of communications and marketing. Yeah.
Super. And Dan?
I'm Dan Schaefer. I'm our Director of Operations and Head of Quality Control.
Fantastic. And Taylor, I know that you're in a bit of a noisy environment, but could you give a short introduction?
Sure, yeah. My name's Taylor Mork, and I'm one of the founders of Crop to Cup Coffee Importers and Showroom Coffee as well. And we sell the Arc Roasters, so I do most of the sourcing for Crop to Cup, working with producers around the world, and started with Dan on building the Arc Roaster project.
Fantastic.
Dan, touch more on that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Taylor. Dan, so we're going to talk a little bit about the new roaster that you're coming out with, but I'd really like to hear about the company. And in fact, there's three companies involved in the group. There's Showroom Coffee, Arc Roasters, and Crop to Cup. What's the relationship between those three?
So the rundown is about 13 years ago, Taylor, who you just met, and his co-founder, Jake Elster, started Crop to Cup Coffee Importers to promote and sell specialty Ugandan coffee in the U.S. to work with farmers. And that company, Crop to Cup Coffee Importers, is still around today, works in a lot more countries than just Uganda. But in that time, over the last 13 years, I've been with the company since 2010. So for the last decade, we've met both small roasters and smallholder farmers that had real needs for evaluating coffee, whether that was starting a small business or whether that was finding good coffee at the smallholder level, cooperative level, and even at the small farm estate level, by different parts of their farm or different varietals they were trying or different processing. So we didn't really get into the roasting side, and because we were dying to do it. It was that we saw a need on both ends of the supply chain to really want to get a good look at coffee, and a lot of roasters and producers felt like coffee roasters were too expensive. They'd have to take out a big loan that they didn't have or pull from another aspect of their business to do that. So
when was this? What year was this?
Well, that need's been ever present.
Right, okay.
The need to want to find good coffee has always been there. But Taylor in 2016, when he was working in China, partnered with a family-owned factory there. When he eyed a roaster that kind of the bones of a roaster that he thought could really work for a lot of the roasters that we were selling to and talking to, that was looking for a small batch roaster, a profile roaster that you could even use as a sample roaster that can grow with you, carbon steel drum, good quality. And that's really when Arc Roasters was born, was Taylor making that partnership and finding really the engineer that had come up with this really great roaster that we could improve and then sell to around the world. So that's where Arc Roaster started. That model is the Arc 800. And then Showroom Coffee is a new company that is meant to serve smaller roasters. So that could be home roasters that can't quite yet at the full buy at the full bag level, or a small roaster that wants to try a lot of different coffees, isn't ready yet, isn't ready to commit to the full bag, or doesn't have that purchasing power yet. So by splitting off Crop to Cup split bag business into a new company, Showroom, we're able to better service those customers and really let Crop to Cup focus on what it does well, which is, as Taylor mentioned, working with smallholder farmers around the world to import specialty coffee and let Showroom really target and support small home roasters, small batch roasters, and the ARC brand really marries best with the Showroom coffee brand, because we're selling a roaster that you can then use at home or in your cafe, and you have this split weight to go with it. So those are the three different companies.
So in some respects, it's kind of a turnkey. It's a kind of a turnkey solution that you can offer roasters, because you're not just selling a machine, but you've also got the other elements that feed into it, right?
Yeah, I don't want to oversell it. Like, you can get everything from us, but
No.
I think the best way to frame it is that we really try to only get involved in parts of the coffee supply chain where we feel like we can add value. So that starts at the bean level. There's a lot of coffee traded around the world, but we're very intentional about what supply chains we choose to get involved in, if we think we can be helpful. On the crop to cup coffee side, that's usually farmers that don't yet have access to the US market or Canadian market, and we can help be that bridge. And on the roaster side, there's a lot of roasters on the market that you can buy. We're very intentionally trying to get to help roasters get access to a small batch roaster that can grow with them. There's a lot of
that. We're going to come on to the whole, because that's the exciting bit. I can't give it all up front there, Dan. I've got to hold something back. Tell me a little bit about your own history. What have you? So the business has been going for about 10 years. Where did you come into it, and what's your background?
Sure. So I think most people have a circuitous path into coffee. Mine was, I had a strong interest in East Africa. I studied abroad in Kenya and Ethiopia. And for a while, I was taking high school students on experiential learning trips around the world, predominantly in Africa. And so I moved to New York for my now wife, and I was looking for a job, and Crop to Cup was a socially conscious for-profit business that was working specifically with smallholder farmers in Uganda and East Africa, which really struck a chord with me, to see if there could be a way to add value to the supply chain outside of the nonprofit industry. I liked that mix. So that's the why I joined Crop to Cup. Over the last 10 years, I've worked just about every job in coffee. We brought in Ugandan coffee back then, and one of the easiest ways to sell it was roasted. So we had a small roasted brand back then. So I've been everything from a barista, cafe manager, wholesale sales, espresso tech.
Right. That's the best way, right?
You do learn. I would say it definitely helps promote empathy for everyone in the supply chain, because you see where people are coming from. And then I went on my own journey for quality, of getting my Q grader license, getting more into cupping, understanding the quality behind coffee. And Taylor and I have actually traveled quite a bit in that decade, and I share a lot of the sourcing responsibilities around the world as well with the co-founder Jake and the rest of our small team here. So I've gotten a nice look at coffee for sure.
Fantastic. So thank you. So we've got the background. We've got the background of the companies and of yourself. What are the product lines that you've got at ARC right now? So you've got, is it 2 roasters at the moment that you sell?
Yes. So we've been selling the ARC 800 for just over 4 years. And that is a roaster that we sell all over the world, from exporters in Papua New Guinea, cooperatives in Kenya, and Uganda, as well as, small home roasters around the US. And we were so enthused by the support and reaction to the ARC 800 and really how good the quality of it was, especially and the value. So I saw a real need for better sample roasting. One of my other many jobs has been to be our sample roaster over the years. So I've felt that pain firsthand. So we just launched this year a second product under the ARC line called the ARC S, which is really just a very specific sample roaster. It's a roaster with a single, very direct purpose, and that just launched. So
Okay.
just the two roasters.
Going back one second, you said when you're talking about the 800 and you had done sample roasting yourself, you said you felt the pain. What specifically were the issues that you were coming up against?
Right. So you're kind of getting at the why here of like why this.
We talked about the why. Well, the why is so important, because
Yeah.
like we talked about a little bit before that we started recording, the just dishing out the specs doesn't really inform anybody. It doesn't
Right.
tell people what you're about, and the why is so much more interesting. So yeah, I'm interested in the why.
Yeah, I agree. So the ARC S for me, it's really a passion project, and the pain that I'm talking about is traditionally sample drum roasting is an open drum. You put a trier or a spoon into a single open drum or a series of small little barrels, open drum barrels, and you kind of chase smoke. That's the simplest way to do it is, the smoke spills out the front of the drum. So you're trying to look at the color of a bean while you're looking through smoke, and while you're getting a lot of smells at the same time. Obviously, it can be done. People have been doing it for a long time, but it kind of asks the sample roaster to do a lot at the same time, especially when you have 3, 4, 5 drums going at the same time. That requires all those drums to be operating, at exactly the same. So whether, we're in Burundi at the National Lab and seeing, a sample roaster explain to me that he knows this drum is spinning at a much faster rate, or this drum gets too hot too quickly. It's just the amount of small adjustments that you're having to make at the same time is a lot. I mean, not to mention the fact that each coffee you put in there has a different moisture content and water activity and density and all that.
Right.
So it's one of those parts of the industry I think people don't think a ton about, because you're like, oh, it's not production roasting. There's no end consumer here. But from my vantage point, it's one of the most important, because it's your opportunity to find good coffee. So you should be caring about this, because if you don't find it at this end, you're never going to get it there.
In production, right?
Exactly.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, right? As long as you can reproduce it. So how do you? So the question in my mind, and I'm sorry if this is kind of a very basic question, but how do you ensure that what you get from the sample roast is what you can get out of the production roast? And I understand that there's sometimes software you can go the software route where you save a profile and you employ that on the batch roaster, and you should get the same results. But how do you address that particular problem?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. So the first why, or the first problem I was sort of explaining, was the fact that it's open drum. So on the ARC S, we put a closed drum on that to make that an easier roasting experience. It's also a roasting experience that's more realistic to what your end product's going to taste like, right? You're not roasting 132 pounds of coffee on an open drum. So why would you taste your sample roast on something different? The software you're talking about, like an Akawa, like a small air roasted coffee, it's a fantastic piece of software and engineering to roast a very small amount of coffee, the same way every time. It is also air roasting. So there is a difference between the way the coffee is going to how the end product's going to taste like. Now, if your commercial roaster is an air roaster, I could see that being a good fit. But the vast majority of roasters, especially our customers, are drum roasters. They roast on drums. So that was also part of the why of having a carbon steel drum and a closed system. On the, ensuring the good, I really think sample roasting and cupping and evaluating coffee is about seeing a coffee's potential. It's an agricultural crop. Freshness is a factor here. So there is a lot of, managing expectations, but to my earlier point, you only know if a coffee's good if you're able to get a good look at it. And the ArcS gives you that opportunity and to replicate it and to make the roasting process easier for a sample roaster. So that's and also, at a reasonable price point. That's another reason a lot of roasters don't have sample roasters, is they're very expensive. And then the ones built for origin, rightfully so, were built belt drives, extremely easy to maintain, kind of low-fi intentionally, because they knew the conditions would be less than ideal for a roasting environment. And while I think that that's good from a maintenance standpoint, I think the bar could be much higher with what you're asking your sample roaster to be at an export lab or a cooperative lab.
Right. So we've got the two products, the ARC 800, which was your initial first foray, which was quite successful, and you sold that all over the world. What was the excuse me, I may have missed this earlier, but what was the reason then for the ARC-S? So the ARC 800's got four. It can have. Is that right? It's got 4 drums. You can have it up to 4 drums, or is that the S? I'm getting.
The ARC 800 is a single roaster, so it's not a modular. It's not a modular unit.
Right, and the ARC-S has the modular ability, right?
Exactly,
Gotcha.
exactly. So the ARC 800, you could go down to maybe 300-400 grams and use it as a sample roaster, but realistically, if you want to taste a lot of different coffees, if you're a roaster and decide which one you want to buy, or if you're a farmer and you're trying to figure out which one's good, you need a lot of drums, so you need at least a couple. So that's the ARC-S is about, specifically looking at sample roasting. And the ARC 8, the nice thing about it is it's a roaster that can grow with you. So maybe it's your first roaster and then you do well, and you want to buy a bigger one. Because the quality of build matches a larger scale roaster, you can profile on it and then kind of go to that
now
level.
That makes a lot of sense.
Go to that level up
I
roaster.
Understand. And you've partially answered the question I had as well, which was why the multiple drums? I was trying to, again, my background is not in roasting, so you're giving me a free education here as well. But the multiple drums exist because you're able to sample different types of coffee at the same time. Is that? But why is that so important? Why can't you sample one after another?
It's about time. It is
just time. Okay.
It is really about time. So, you can go down all sorts of rabbit holes with what the best roasting arc is and timetable, but let's just ballpark it for conversation's sake, or somewhere around 8 minutes. Let's say you're going to do an 8-minute sample roast. That air roasting software that you mentioned goes on the quicker end of, so you can save time through that. But as I mentioned, it's not the same as drum roasting. So you're evaluating the product in a different way. But it's really about time. So, to have someone sit there and roast on a single drum, maybe 60 samples in a day
he'd literally get through that many.
Oh, more than that.
Okay.
What's amazing is, let's look at a smallholder cooperative. Farmers are bringing cherry into the washing station, whether it's, natural process or washed, however it is, the harvest happens and you want to evaluate the quality of the coffee throughout the harvest. And you want to identify the good and kind of move your energy towards coffees, and you're constantly planning and rejiggering kind of where, from a washing station manager, from a cooperative management framework, kind of where am I going to sell this? what coffee do I want to bulk together to make different sort of blends? And to do that, you need to be tasting it. And that's really the importance of having an in-country lab, and you need a ton of drums to do that. And
Right.
there's some incredible sample roasters on the market. Some of them, may require a loan for a group like that to get $10,000 US for a single drum. That makes multi-drum sample roasting really, really difficult.
It's out of reach for a lot of people, I imagine.
Right. And that's another big part of the why here is, in order to find good coffee, in order to reward the incredible work happening at the producer level, you have to be able to pull it out, to differentiate it. You have to say, I have the ability, to cup Nick's coffee next to Kate's and see if Nick's has potential to do that. And to do that, you need more drums. So that's another big part of multi-drum, and then the modular system is, you want to be comparing apples to apples. So, you're able to not have these different drums roasting a little bit differently. You want them all nice and tidy, shared airflow, shared gap.
Bound to be some kind of calibration issue from one to another. There just is, because that's life. So that's really helped a lot. That's really interesting. And then you mentioned blends, which is a thing with me at the moment. I have to say, with us, where we're tasting a lot more blends. I know that single origin is what everybody's talking about now, but I've got no problems with blends, I have to say. In fact, I rather enjoy blends, and I think it opens up a new dimension of opportunities and potential for roasters who aren't afraid of creating blends to be a bit more creative and to make interesting coffees. So and you're smiling. I don't know if I'm saying something stupid now, but
no.
I'm going to stick with it. This is how I feel, but
I totally, I get that. And from a sort of, wanting to give an end customer experience of having a more balanced, uniform profile, like I agree, it can be really, really nice. The reason I was smiling was single origins are still blends. And that's kind of the funny part of
you're right. You're right.
Of the coffee supply chain is, they usually are, I'll put it that way, is that, you are blending the best of that harvest together to get up to an exportable amount of volume.
Sure.
So the heavy cupping is just pulling out the good, and blending is maybe a wrong way to frame it, but it's, importers, cooperatives, exports, whoever is choosing how to put the coffee together, you just need a lot of drums to at least have that opportunity. Otherwise you're just getting a single sample that says yes or no. You mix all the farmers, that's
really interesting. So look, let's talk about the future of roasting. That sounds very exciting, but we're going through an unprecedented time at the moment where the landscape is changing in a way that none of us could have predicted, and we're all having to dance a little bit and to pivot, as consultants like to say. But we've got in the UK, I can tell you, and I know this is also the case in the US. There's a lot of coffee chains are hurting very badly. Some of and we just had a story that went out a few days ago, I think. One of the major chains here in the UK is Cafe Nero, is on the verge of going into administration, and a number of other companies, chains here, are looking at evaluating how they're going to sell coffee. How Pret a Manger always used to say, they had a saying, follow the skyscraper, because they put all of their coffee shops, and they were more than coffee, but they coffee was a big part of it, but they put their shops where businesses were. So you followed the skyscraper. And now that model is, as far as the CEO of Pret a Manger is concerned, that model is gone. And they now have changed that to saying, follow the customer. And the customer generally seems to be more often in a suburban environment. And I was reading a story also about Australia, and had a similar way in Melbourne, which is a city of great coffee culture, where people want to see coffee where they're at, which is more and more frequently at home and in their local communities rather than in the cities. And so this is a challenge for the retail side of the business. How does that impact you, or how does it impact your customers? You can talk a little bit about how the landscape's changing for you, and whether you feel that this is just a short challenge that we need to get through, or whether there's a fundamental change.
Well, I don't know how many like hot takes I'm willing to give on predicting the future, but I will say that the coffee industry, from my vantage point, is very much a community, and the pandemic has hit everyone up and down the supply chain. We've lost some good friends to COVID that unfortunately passed away on the supply side. So it's been heartbreaking. You know, we've had customers declare bankruptcy, go out of business. Obviously, with those that were set up better for online sales and, you know, wholesaling to grocery stores, you know, RTD products are definitely doing better, and those that were retail focused are struggling. So it's been tough watching both ends of the supply chain struggle. On the supply side, there were already huge issues, and this is kind of compounding them from some pricing pressures, from things get very country specific, but there's global warming. There's lots of challenges on the supply side, and this has made things very difficult on the supply side. So we've done everything we can as an importer to support our customers, whether on the roasting side, whether that's extending terms, waiving credit card fees, whatever we could do to help keep the lights on. If you go back to this past spring, it was, things were constantly changing. So we were just constantly talking about, how can we make a plan? How can we support? And the same thing was true with farmers as we got, harvest to harvest, just talking a lot, making a plan, coming up with creative solutions. So I think this year has just been a lot of trying to support each other as best we can. And I don't know how much this will stretch into 2021. I know a vaccine isn't going to be a silver bullet immediately around the world. So I do think this will take a bit of time. But there's, part of the reason we're very passionate about this is there are a lot of big problems in the coffee industry that we're trying to help solve or be supportive of the answers where we can be, which is again why why we got involved in selling these roasters. This harvest, we're shipping an ARC-S to one of our partners in Rwanda. We've got it's brand new. So for people that are looking for reviews online, are used to things like that, I'm expecting in the next few months, you'll be able to see more of that as more of these units find homes. But
I have to say they're very good looking units to look at. You've done a great job in terms of design aesthetics. And I was reading on your, I don't know where it was, maybe on an article you sent me, that it was important to you because you know that these things are often in the front office. They're front and center in front. People want to show them off. If you're roasting coffee, you want to tell people and show people you're roasting coffee, and you want to do it on something that looks beautiful, because there's an interpretation from that into the quality. And so I have to say, I actually really like the look of what you've created. So congratulations there. And I guess And I
That's
guess
nice.
being able to keep that price point down. Well, you know what? You probably don't listen to my podcasts and things, and please don't, because they're terrible. But I talk with a scientist every week about who builds coffee, who rebuilds and refurbishes coffee machines. But I have a thing where I talk a lot about how important it is, the quality of what I'm touching. So when I'm interacting with a machine, and I'm doing that on a regular basis, I don't want to feel like I'm interacting with something that's cheap, plasticky,
Yep.
that has a feel that just leaves me cold. I want to interact with something that makes me feel, that elevates me to being maybe more of an artist than I am, but makes me feel good every time I look at it. Makes me feel good every time I touch it. I think that's actually a very important thing for the soul. If we're interacting with something every single day, if you make that thing an ugly, bad, cheap, nasty thing that you're interacting with every single day, that just brings your life down a little bit. So for a coffee roaster, having, I think, a machine that not only is quality, but that also looks the part, I think is actually very important. And bringing the price, sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say I agree with that. And it's funny to think about, for lack of a better word, the arc that design took from like a sketch in my notepad to just the years of back and forth with the engineers, because a big part of the Arc S is, we wanted you to have the same level of drum speed control, of gas pressure control, and airflow control that you have with your production roasting, that you're used to roasting. So you don't have to like go into this totally different headspace of how do I sample roast on an open drum versus how do I production roast on a closed drum. So to get all of that functionality and still have it look good and be modular was it took a lot of different twists and turns
together.
together.
Right?
It
All
did,
these things
but
look easy when you look at it from the outside. You think, well, of course, but to get to that point, you must have gone through a lot of iterations and a lot of redesigns to get to something that you're happy with.
Yeah, and I feel confident that with the version we have now, we have married there's been a lot of happy compromises that actually turned out to be better. Sometimes you think you've got it and like send it off like this is perfect, and then I'm not a mechanical engineer, so I'll get certain feedback, or to your point, you get your hands on it, you get your hands on the unit and you feel it, and you get in the headspace of the sample roasting. You're like, oh, this could be better. Right. And I feel like I'm very proud and very happy of what we've got for sale now, and what the Arc S has become. So
super. You know what? Let's end it there. It's a fantastic place to wrap it up. I know you've got a limited amount of time as well, and we were a bit late starting because we had some technical issues. Kate saved us, so God bless you, Kate.
No problem.
Thank you for that. I really enjoyed that conversation, and I felt like I learned quite a bit on it as well. To be honest with you, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, right? So it's important, if I can see that, hopefully everybody else can see that too, but it's important that somebody coming into this who doesn't know who you are understands, like, okay, it's modular, it means I can do this. Oh, okay, it's built in the way that I can sample roast, and my production batch roast is going to be the same. That's useful to me.
Yeah,
at a price point,
I think if I could have one takeaway for listeners, it's that you can sample roast. You can make this happen. And from a roaster side, that means you can be a better buyer. You can get a better product for your customers, or maybe a more informed buying position. And on the producer side, you can get into sample roasting and quality evaluation to find good coffee. And that's really our goal here, is to make this accessible and be part of that same team of finding good coffee.
Awesome. Well, great luck with it, Dan. It was really enjoyable to talk with you all.